Okay, so we're going to take a look at networking. So you know that when you're going to do anything on the web, you're going to start with a PC, which is right here. Okay, and as long as your PC has the appropriate hardware, operating system, and applications, you can. It's pretty good. You can do what you want. And maybe there are multiple people, multiple users in your place of work, and they all are working on PCs. And life is good. But we often want to be able to share things. We might want to share files. We might want to share hardware resources like printers or network scanners. We might want to exchange data like email or web pages. We might want to even share network applications or access data on a server someplace. And so in order for that to happen, these PCs need to be networked. And so we do that through use of a local area network switch. Switch is similar to a hub, except that it is smart. It's got a CPU. It's got memory. It's got the ability to address its ports, so it knows which computer is connected to which interface, and then it can filter traffic to and from those interfaces. So this is called a LAN switch. And sneak that in here someplace. And a switch connects to these PCs through a kind of cable called unshielded twisted pair. It's the same kind of cable that phones used to have back when phones had wires. And so essentially what happens is cable is run between each device and the switch, which acts as a central device that interconnects them all. So bear with me for a second. I'm going to draw in the cabling. So this kind of scenario where you've got a switch in the center of multiple networkable devices and they're all plugged together. This is called a star topology. It's supposed to look like a star with a switch at the center and the devices or nodes, also called hosts, radiating around the outside edges. The cabling itself is referred to as Category 5E, unshielded twisted pair cabling, or UTP. And I'll misspell shielded for your enjoyment. There you go. All right. So that's a reference to the actual cabling. All these blue cables are Cat5e unshielded twisted pair, commonly referred to as an Ethernet cable or a patch cord. Those aren't accurate terms. So by standard, Cat5e is the correct thing to be talking about. Now, you do have some devices that are not wired. If they were wired, then you could share data via these cables, via this Cat5e through the switch to the destination and back and forth. But there are some devices that aren't wired, such as, oops, bear with me here, I've lost my reference. There's my reference. All right, so some devices such as maybe laptops or smartphones. So these devices are wireless devices, and they need a way to connect into this network as well. And so a company, depending on its size, may have one or more wireless access points, which looks something like this, a little bit smaller. And the access point itself is connected through, having trouble here finding what I'm looking for. All right, the access point itself is connected through cabling, just like every other node in the network, but then it is actually a radio transceiver, and it sends radio waves to these devices like a phone or a laptop or a tablet, and the mobile devices also have radio transceivers. So transceiver stands for transmit and receive. They send data back and forth through radio waves, and through radio waves, the device is able to connect to the access point, and then the access point through Cat5e connects to the local area network, and then can therefore access any wired resource on the network. And this is great, and we're all very happy, except sooner or later, somebody needs to get out of this network and get onto the internet. Maybe you need to access a website. Maybe you need to access a email, any kind of internet resource. And so here is this cloud represents the internet. I'll put it over here. So how do we connect from a local area network to the internet? Well, generally what happens is there is an intermediate device which connects networks called a router. Oops. Let's put that right about here. And so you might, well, your router needs to connect to your local area network through Cat5e. There are some other kinds of cables, by the way, but through Cat5e is the standard, although you could use fiber optic or coax or something like that as well. And then you're going to have an intermediate, you're going to have a provider for this internet access, so an internet service provider. I'll put it over here. And your internet service provider connects to the internet. So now you just need a way to connect your router to the ISP, and you'll be all set. I'm going to shrink this text, get out of the way. Okay, so this connection right here. Now, that kind of connection has got a special name. It's called the local loop or the last mile. These are trade terms for it. Essentially what we're talking about here is that you need telecommunication facilities. So in our marketplaces, people like Cox or CenturyLink, you can do Covad. There's different methods to create this connection between the router and the internet service provider. So the router is sometimes also referred to as a default gateway. And so I like that term because the idea of gateway makes me think of like, oops, what have I done here? Excuse me, I'm pasting like a madman. Let me try again. Yeah, that's what I was trying to do. So it's also known as a default gateway. The router is. And I like that term because gateway is like a doorway, right? And so if you imagine that the router is the door, everything on this side of the door is local. It's part of our local area network. And everything on that side of the door is access to a different network. So this is a wide area network connection, a WAN connection. And that connection can come in multiple varieties. And so I'm just going to borrow this text box. If we did different kinds of connections, you could look at like dial-up using the phone lines. You could look at DSL, which also uses the phone lines but is digital. You could look at cable, such as coaxial cable from the cable company. You could look at satellite, which is nice in rural areas where you don't have some of these facilities like cable or DSL. You can still get to internet through satellite connections. You could have like fiber optic. These days, there's a lot of, especially in metropolitan communities, there are internet service providers that will provide fiber optic to the home. It's expensive, but it's very, very fast. Okay, so one thing to consider though is Wi-Fi. Oh, wait. Before I get there, another method that could be used, I don't generally see it here, but it is an internet connection method, is cellular. So data plans like 4G, for instance, will allow you to connect to a cell tower, which in turn is connected through cabling to an internet service provider and to the internet. But although cell phones are on a data plan is a way to connect to the internet, Wi-Fi is not. Okay, why not? Well, we talked about Wi-Fi over here, right? We've got our wireless access point, and we got our radio waves connecting these mobile devices. But look at what they're connecting those devices to. The radio waves connects this laptop to this Wi-Fi access point, which connects it to the switch, which is part of the local area network. In order to get to the internet, you got to leave the switch and go through the router, and then you still have to go through telecommunication facilities in order to get to the internet service provider. So Wi-Fi is not getting you internet access. Wi-Fi is getting you local network access, and then some other method is getting you internet access. So these other things on the list are some examples of how you could get there. All right, so this is just a diagram of some of the basics of networking. You can see the local area networking, including the cabling and or radio waves with a wireless access point. You can see that the router stands as the doorway between the local network and the outside world. You can see that the provision of the internet connection comes from an internet service provider. You can have multiple different kinds of methodologies. All right, so I hope that helps.